Okay, good news, bad news, depending on your view. James, the brother of Jesus, is the first pope.
Dr. Tabor, we just completed 10 of your lectures for Christianity before Paul. That is pretty much Jewish Christ followers and what they believed, and tracking the, let's just call it what it is, the caliphate from its earliest inception that we can historically get. And I want to make a comment before you run with this, because I'm going to tell you, I've listened to a buffet. I like to use the analogy of a buffet. You go to a buffet, there's hundreds of different options of food, from desserts, and the different tables have different kind of genres of different foods. Scholarship is like that. I go to one and they're like Greco-Roman, we focus classical material. You could tell the influences there. Another one, very Jewish, we only focus on that. Another one, and they focus on this, and there's different kinds of scholarship. And one of them is mythicism, but the mythicists are typically like Robert Price or Richard Carrier. And then there's a lot of non-academics online that like circulate forms of this and ideas of it. And at one point I was a mythicist and I thought Jesus didn't exist. Then I started looking at this going, even if one piece of historical data is correct, mythicism is false, in the sense that mythicism, the claim that there was never a historical guy at all. Meaning everything could be fiction, but if one of them is just, that actually is a guy right there. But they mythologized everything else about him, well, then mythicism isn't true. And that made me go, well, it's probably a lot more likely, since I have all these troubles with all these different texts that sound more like a historical Jesus probably at the root of this than not. So here, I say all that to say this. I moved to, I think there's probably a guy. But probably a guy, right? I can't put numbers, but I would put it in the 75%, right? I leave the 25% or something like that. I'm just throwing out numbers. But then I listen to your lecture and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, there's so many pieces that you kind of found that piece together that made me go, it makes it more solid. There's a real movement at the bottom of this with a real guy who started this whole thing, probably very charismatic, and was ultimately killed. And we used to ask the question, why would they even deify this mundane nobody from Galilee? He's nobody. He's insignificant. And, it used to get me like, wow. When I got done with this course, I went, he clearly isn't insignificant. He's clearly an important figure, even if the high priest don't like him. This guy is a popular figure amongst the common folk. So I just rambled all that to say your lectures, and I hope everybody goes. The link is in the description. Go sign up today, Christianity Before Paul. But it really persuaded me and strengthened my view on a historical Jesus being more probable. I can't prove it. And there's no way to, maybe we will eventually. But that's for another day with the discoveries of archaeology. But I can't act like this did not put more weight into my historical Jesus assumptions. Sorry for the long rant.
Yeah, so you want me to address mythicism? No,
no, I mean, just...
Yeah. Because that's not...
Without, you could just come in and go, well, that wasn't the goal of this course, though it might have been...
Okay. Well, that obviously wasn't the goal of it. Well, that obviously wasn't the goal of the course. I'm glad you moved in the right direction, Eric. And there is something, though. Jesus was a disciple of John the Baptizer in the text that we cover, partly the New Testament, but also some hidden, forgotten, unknown texts of the Jewish Christian side of things. Some embedded in the New Testament, others we go elsewhere for. However, I will say this, probably the key thing in the course is Jesus had a brother. So X had a brother, nobody had a brother, but the brother existed. I don't know anyone who's denying the existence of James, the brother of Jesus. I'm not going to do mythicism, I'm just going to make a few comments.
Right.
So you could say, well, brother means, cousin or friend or buddy or whatever. If you even want to go cosmic, he's a mythological brother in heaven. I have no idea. But in the text that we survey consistently by people who hate the movement, keep that in mind. The church fathers do not want to admit James is anything. James, the brother of Jesus.
Right.
Galatians 1. Paul said he met him. Now, if Paul's myth, all his letters are myth, James is myth, Jesus is myth, then you got me. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about fantasy. But as you say, you begin to get this interlocking. So you get people like Eusebius. He can't stand the Ebionites. You know how he introduces them? First, I should tell you who they are. Think of Eusebius, the father of church history. Now, he's in the 4th century. But he knows something about a group called the Ebionites, the poor ones. Now, that name goes back to the Dead Sea Scrolls. So now we've got a hook. And we have texts talking about the poor ones, the teacher of righteousness, and so forth. And this use of Ebionite is just a tag that he uses to make fun of them. Oh yeah, they're called the poor ones because their opinions of Christ are so poor. Meaning they don't think he's God. They don't think he's begotten by the Holy Spirit. They reject the virgin birth. They actually reject Paul, as he explains. But when he has to tell you in the previous chapters about James, the brother of Jesus, it's almost like, don't make me say this, please. But when Jesus dies, and he has no doubt that he existed, they had to decide who to put in his place. You know, who's going to lead us? Now that question is asked in another text that's quite interesting. Nothing to do with these texts. I'll get back to Eusebius. Gospel of Thomas saying 12. Okay, it's a tradition. No matter what you think of the Gospel of Thomas. You say, well, it's Gnostic, whatever. Whole books have been written on the earlier levels, the later levels. It was definitely Gnosticized. But about a third of it sounds a lot like the Q source, which is the material Matthew and Luke have in common that's not in Mark.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of embedded there. But what does it say? The disciples are saying to Jesus, Lord, you're going to leave us. We're going to be like orphans. Where should we go? And he says, go to James the Just, for whom heaven and earth came to be. Now, I'm not going to tell you what that last phrase means because you got to watch.
Yeah, go get the course, sign up.
Because I explain it. We can actually decipher that. It's code.
Yeah.
It's a Jewish code, but we know it from other sources. So what does Eusebius say? He says, Peter and John met, and they had to decide, what do we do next? And of course, he loves Paul. He has whole sections on Paul. I'm talking about Eusebius.
Yeah.
And he goes, those guys weren't proud. They weren't pride. Those two apostles, they were of the 12, James and John, the best known. Paul calls them the pillars of the church. But wait a minute. When Paul names the pillars of the church, he names a guy named James first. Now, this unknown cousin, brother, a nobody, became the leader over Peter and over John, the 12. I'd like to know more about that guy.
Right.
Okay. So this is like a detective mystery. We're on the track of James to get to Jesus. Robert Eisenman was the first one to say this. You want to know about the historical Jesus? Look for the historical James first, because that's his brother. No matter how you interpret brother. Let's say he's not the brother, but he's the head of the movement. Head of the movement, but he's an unknown guy that just showed up, and Paul says he's the chief pillar. I jump to the book of Acts, chapter 15. Suddenly we get an unknown person. Paul speaks. Peter speaks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what you think of Acts. Dated in the 4th century. Nobody does that. Dated in the 2nd century. Dated in the late 1st century.
Right.
That's not the point. We have the text. And it's telling a story of Paul. And it's very pro-Pauline. And what happens? Peter comes in from the field preaching. Just like Paul said, he went to the circumcision. Paul comes in preaching to the Gentiles. We got to make a big decision here. What are we going to do with these non-Jews that want to join the Messianic movement? Well, there is a messianic movement. I don't think it's all made up. Like there was nothing. I mean, what's Paul even talking about? I went up and met this guy, and I met this guy, and I stayed with Peter. He's very specific.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you just go completely mythological, like Paul didn't exist, letters are forged, everything's forged, nothing exists, I don't have a lot to say to you, but I would say sign up for the course because you're still going to get a challenge. I'm only mentioning a few things here.
Yeah.
I got 10, 20, 30 things that I
Oh.
not to prove it.
Yeah.
Sources. Okay, so what happens in Acts 15? People don't realize the shock. This should be an earthquake. You're going along. Peter goes, I think we should let them in because I had this vision of this centurion Cornelius. Paul, I've been preaching to them. They're great. They're turning from idols, serving the living God. They're not committing fornication, or at least I'm telling them not to. I'm bringing them into the kind of Jewish matrix of ethics.
Right.
And then, council's over? No. All the apostles, all the elders are assembled. Peter and Paul. And then an unidentified guy stands up in front of the whole group. Who would that be? I don't have a table here. My decision is, this is so rabbinic. He's the Rebbe. He's the chief rabbi of the Nazarene movement. Now, Paul's a ringleader of the Nazarene movement in this book, but a ringleader means a kind of a top guy.
Right.
He's in the top tier of 3, 4, 5. What do you mean my decision is? Who is this guy? Well, his name is James.
Right.
Luke doesn't identify him.
Yeah.
You got to be suspicious. You don't even say, and James, the brother of the Lord, stood up. But Eusebius says that he's the brother of Jesus.
Right.
Now, he's careful. Now, I don't mean Mary had him. They're like, no, she could never have sex because I'm Eusebius and I believe in the virgin birth. So can't be that. But the name slips in without explanation. Then at the end, in Acts 21, Paul's almost shaking, going up. James wants to see you. James wants to see you. James calls him on the carpet, says, we've been hearing something about you, that you go out into the diaspora and you preach to these Gentiles. You go to the synagogue and all that. And then when you get them away, you go, you guys, you don't need to keep the Torah. You don't need to become Jews. Okay, that was agreed at the council in Acts 15. But we have heard, and I know this isn't true, this is in the story.
Yeah.
Please don't answer because I don't want to hear anything else. That you're also teaching Jews to give up the Torah. Now, I don't know if this happened or not. That's not the point. It's the story. Paul's like, okay. But he says, in order that we would know that's not true, go pay for these guys that are undergoing. It's a private thing that you do, a Nazir vow.
Right.
And so, I'll do that.
This strange stuff you're highlighting is what you pull out that I don't ever look at. And that's why I'm like, it sounds way more
so
like...
what did you say? Back to Eusebius.
Yeah.
And we'll do this segment here. Because you got to take the course to get it all. So what does he say? And it's not just him. He says, when Jesus died, there was Peter and John. Okay, we know that. And then they weren't jealous. They didn't want the first place. Now in Mark, John's one of the guys that wants the right hand or the left hand with his brother James, who's another James that people get confused.
Yeah.
So don't be like my students all these years, but particularly Notre Dame, the Catholic school. Dr. Tabor, you keep talking about James. Who's James? It's a brother of Jesus. I didn't know you had brothers. Well, what's the big surprise? So he says that they appointed James. They weren't jealous. They appointed James. But then I have other texts but then we explore other texts where we're getting the other side of the story. That's essentially Eusebius, who doesn't like it.
Yeah.
And so, he became the leader, but, and then we have other texts that say, he was bishop of Jerusalem. Oh yeah, he's just head of Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And you know what some of these other texts say? The Ebionite texts?
What?
He's the bishop of the bishops. That's called the Pope.
Yeah.
Okay, good news, bad news, depending on your view. James, the brother of Jesus, is the first Pope. Now I'm just using Pope to mean Papa, Father.
Right.
Bishop sounds very ecclesiastical. You know what? It just means shepherd or overseer. So he's the shepherd of the shepherds, the leader of the leaders in these other texts.
Right.
So somebody went and created this, created that, changed this, changed that. Who is trying to get James in charge? There's nobody trying to get James in charge. Every text I showed you, except for the internal texts of the Ebionites, even Eusebius, they want to get rid of that guy. And they don't want him to be the brother, as far as a biological brother of Jesus. So, obviously I'm going to say, sign up for the course and all that, but I mean it.
Yeah.
You're going to take a deep dive into these sources. I'm not saying nobody knows them, but they are so important. And there are a lot of pieces that begin to make sense as you lock them together. And I think it's not a conspiracy. It's basically this historical source, this one, this one, this one, this one. And the ones that hate him say it, and the ones that love him say it.
Thank you, James, so much. I really enjoyed the course. I hope you will sign up. We really appreciate all of the people who do sign up. James will be spending the next 6 months for everybody who signs up. Just so they know what the course is about, it's a 10-lecture course with a bonus additional, it's going to be an additional archaeological lecture that's going to cover with PowerPoint images, but the lectures are actually different. So it's a different style. All of this is included. You're going to get if we were to print everything, you would have that much material in this course. There's going to be pamphlets. It's all going to be organized for you. Books.
I'm giving you 3 full books.
Several books. Yeah. And there's just so much material that there's something there and I can't not see it now. So I do hope people will check it out and go sign up. We are hoping to see a large crowd because you do these Zooms and Hangouts and the people get to ask questions and actually get to connect with you and you get to know them personally. I know that you're, retired from UNC Charlotte, but you're not really retired. You've continued your teacher kind of connections with people. And I know that this is something you enjoy doing too as well, James, because these are people who don't show up to your classes because they must get that class out of the way to achieve their goal, whatever PhD. And this is something Steve Mason said to me in an interview one time. These are people who, it's like the famous, there's been a sermon that pastors will say where in the Ephesians text, chosen, right? They're elect. And there's a story where this little boy is adopted, goes and the 2 kids are, they're mocking him. You're adopted. You're adopted. And the kid's crying, goes in and grandma whispers in his ear. The kid walks back outside. You're adopted. It just made the kid even more happier. Why aren't you crying? You're adopted. You're not really born one of us. And then the kid finally snaps and goes, listen, mom and dad have to put up with you. They chose me. Well, these people are choosing this course. They want to know the truth. They're not here because they must get their PhD for this, whatever. They love this material, and there's a huge family of people who are doing it. So thank you so much, James. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I would say, John Wesley once said he was kicked out of the Church of England, and he said, the world is my pulpit. So I would say you all are my classroom. And I've done 3 courses through Myth Vision courses. And one was on Mark, one was Jesus and the Dead Sea Scrolls, one was the historical Paul. And I know the students, and you pointed out a big difference. When I give these readings, these assignments, these fairly in-depth scholarly articles, you know what? The students in my Myth Vision courses, they read them. They really read them. And in the Zoom meetings, we start at a level like this, but after they've read a few of these texts, they've read the Didache, they've studied the Clementine literature.
Right.
The level starts going like this. Not like you'll be left behind, don't worry. It's not like I'm going to say all these esoteric things you can't understand.
Right.
But you get brought into the discussion. And this isn't just flattering the students, they're smart.
Yeah.
They see things that I don't see. I know every teacher says, I learn from my students. No, I mean it. I get feedback and posts. I get to know you. Even if you can't come to the meetings live,
They're
we have them
recorded.
once a month. We record them. They become part of the course. So I like all 4 of my courses, and I would want to pitch all 4 of them now that we have this one.
Yeah.
This one will be edited and be out soon, I hope by Thanksgiving of this year. But the reason you want to sign up now, we're not just pitching, oh, buy this, buy this. That's not the point. I can only do the Zoom meetings for 6 months.
Yeah.
You can't just go on forever with one course. Every course has a semester. So I'm giving you more than a semester. Semesters are 3 to 4 months. I'm giving you almost like a school year, 4 and 4. And maybe, no, I'm giving you almost as much as like a full course for the whole year.
Right.
It ends up being 6 or 7 months. So the thing is, if you sign up now, you get to begin those. Now, you always have them. You could sign up 5 years from now and you'll get the Zoom meetings.
Of course.
But you also have the chance to go live. I'm sure you'll be able to make some of them live. And even if not, you have my personal email. You get the relationship with the teacher.
Yeah.
More than you really get in a class. When I taught classes, 150 students, I don't get to know all of them. Now, if we have a few thousand people sign up, which I think we will, I will not get to know all thousands of you. I hope we have that many. But you know what? You can write me, you can talk to me, and I will read your emails, and I put them in a special box. And I get a lot of emails, hundreds a day. But guess what I give priority to? My students. And all you got to say in the email, student in Christianity before Paul, ding, you go in a special box.
Right.
And that's a prioritized box.
Ladies and gentlemen, sign up for the course. All of the information is in the link below in the description, and I'm going to pin it in a comment so you can't miss it. I hope to see you there. Thanks.